The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned into the PA Power Podcast, College Edition, featuring Rob Waltko and Joe Youngblood. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Hello, wrestling fans. Welcome to the Open Room with your hosts, Joe Youngblood and Rob Waltko. And the season's finally upon us. You know, it's been a lot of talk about what we expect, what we predict, and now we finally can start talking about results. Rob and I are going to break down what's happened in the first week of the season so far, and then what we can expect this coming weekend with a lot of events, tournaments, and big duels coming up involving a lot of the PA Power will be on display. So, Rob, here we are, another week. The season started. Give me quick thoughts on what's happened so far.
Before we get started, I want to remind everyone of the 2019 surge. It'll be sometime next winter. Be on the lookout for Jeff talking about it, but just want to kind of get the word out there early. But in all seriousness, I'm in heaven right now. College wrestling is definitely my thing. I sat on the couch a good part of Saturday watching and a good part of Sunday, and then caught a lot of the matches and results later in the night, and then yesterday as well. Definitely was a good weekend of wrestling. Most of the PA teams were in competition. I don't think Clarion competed. Everyone else, to my knowledge, did compete, at least in an open. And there was definitely some big results. Notably, Penn State on Sunday went out and kind of took Kent State behind the woodshed. They looked really good in front of a very, very loud and rowdy crowd at Rec Hall. And for all intents and purposes, they definitely look like they're reared up to get another national title. Joe, what results did you look at this week and kind of really catch your eye, or you want to talk about?
Well, Rob, first and foremost, let me bounce one back off you. With all the wrestling you watched, did your fantasy football teams happen to suffer as a result?
I'm in the final stretch right now. I play in 5 leagues, which is a bit crazy, but it looks like I'm probably going to get 3 in the playoffs. One's definitely out. Another one's kind of on the bubble. I need a little bit of help. But, yeah, my team's actually starting to pick up. I had Aaron Jones stashed on my bench in a few leagues, so he's running hard for the Packers and definitely making me look good.
All right, and well, it was easy for you too with with your Stillers getting out of the way on Thursday night, so that probably opened up a lot of time for you.
Yeah, definitely could just sit there and watch Red Zone all day Sunday. Don't have to flip back and forth between the Steeler game.
So now getting back to your question, Todd, you asked about what results I saw that maybe caught my eye. I'm not so much sure just results of a team in general, but just talking about some individuals, guys we talked about earlier in the year, a big weekend, Sam Krivis, Brian Corney did lose a match, but he had some other wins. Cam Coy picked up a few wins for UVA as well. He did drop a 7-3 loss to Isaiah White from Nebraska, but last I checked, he's pretty good at wrestling, so it's not like he didn't take a bad loss in that regard. Rob, why don't we talk a little bit about what's commonly becoming known as Pennsylvania West, or maybe let's just say Pennsylvania Midwest right now, because you can almost say Arizona State is somewhat of a at times, or was at one point, a little PA West. Iowa. Give me your thoughts on Iowa. We'll talk about the PA guys, because they're the only ones that matter.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I watched them live on Friday night. They look good. Lee did what Lee does. He went out and just absolutely steamrolled the 2 kids from Kent State and Cal Bakersfield. DeSanto wrestled well. We'll get back to him in a second. Murin looked tough. He looked like he wanted to kind of put a stamp on that job and shut the door on the other guys. He wrestles really, really hard, and he's a lot of fun to watch. He's a guy that I don't think is going to be a whole lot of fun to wrestle, but definitely a lot of fun to watch. And Caleb Young, he's reset at a new weight class. I think there was a lot of talk from people that he would possibly struggle getting down there and being healthy, but to me, he looked good. He transitions really well off his shots. He had a lot of energy, so I don't think the weight cut's going to get to him. But back to DeSanto, Joe, I'm not sure if you got to watch it, but his first match, he goes out, he wrestles Nickel from Cal State Bakersfield, who's ranked 14th, 15th in the country. Really tough kid. National qualifier, won a few matches at the Nationals. And DeSanto techs him. He just completely steamrolls him. It's like, wow, this guy, he's a buzzsaw. But then he wrestles the kid Rooney from Kent State, who by all accounts isn't nearly as credentialed as Nickel, and he struggles. He needs a last-second takedown to beat him. And it's kind of like the same old thing with DeSanto. If he gets rolling early, he's unstoppable. Like if he scores 1 or 2 takedowns in the first 30 seconds, he's going to get 20 more. But if you're able to sneak one on him or be able to withstand that pace and that heat, he's somewhat predictable with that dump, and you just don't grab that elbow. So I don't know how much he's evolved at Iowa. I definitely think his style caters to them being aggressive, forward, always moving. But I definitely think that he needs to, I guess, get some more weapons in his arsenal. I mean, what are your thoughts on him, Joe?
Thoughts and opinions, two separate things. My thoughts on him is, as much as I don't want to, come like the high school podcast and agree on things all the time, he is predictable, and he's a kind of a confidence wrestler. He gets going, and like you said, like he starts to steamroll. His style fits right into that whole Iowa style and his mentality. Their match is made in heaven. We've seen it. I shouldn't say he. We've seen it. We've seen the breakdowns. We've seen that sometimes that teams that do their homework on him are gonna be able to figure him out. And it's not rocket science what you got to do to stop it. You have him wrestling against guys, and every guy's going to give him his best shot, not just because of who he is, but because of the singlet he's wearing. Like everyone wants to give their best shot when he wrestles against Iowa, so they're going to go at him. Any team that's wrestling against Iowa is going to come and be as prepared as they can be, and they're going to do the best they can to get that win, because that's a huge thing, for confidence for an opponent. So DeSanto, I think we're going to see a lot of this year from him. I think he's going to struggle at times, especially when he gets into that meat of that schedule for Iowa. Once they get into the Big Ten, he's going to see match after match like that where there's going to be no let up, and it's not going to be. Kids are going to slow him down enough. He's going to have enough tough opponents in that conference alone that are going to slow down his pace, and once you take that pace away from that's a big thing of his arsenal is the torrid pace that he can keep. And if he can't get his offense going from his feet, and like you said, most notably the dump, it's hopefully they're developing another go-to takedown for him in that Iowa room.
Yeah, when you look at the landscape of 133, I think I called 174 the toughest weight in the country. And that's when I assumed that Fix and Suriano would be down at 125. I might be changing my opinion on that. 33 is brutal. And you put DeSanto against a guy like Suriano or Fix that are coming up in weight, I don't think that stuff's going to work. I mean, he's going to have to develop something else, because he's not just going to bully those guys. Like, those guys aren't rolling over. They're in shape. They're tough. So we'll see. It remains to be seen if he's going to develop something else and kind of turn into that monster that everyone wants him to turn into, because I think by all accounts – the kid he works really hard, and he has a lot of passion for the sport, but certainly he's limited in some facets.
Definitely. And you brought up 133, and when we talk about this weekend coming up, there's some things we can talk about as far as matches that involve PA Guy, and you mentioned Fix, and we'll get to that big judgment weekend right out of the chute here in the third weekend in November, which can be fun stuff to watch as moving forward. They're just going to get better and better. Let's talk quick about Arizona State. Let's talk about some of these guys that aren't in state that are wrestling. Maruka and Shields, both 5-0 on the season so far, and seem to have their stuff rolling. Again, guys in that huge recruiting class that came in with the Valencia brothers, and I think they were number one recruiting class in the country. Both guys out of Franklin Regional, and they're rolling right now out there in Sun Devil land.
Yeah, they're wrestling really well. I think it's interesting to note that Josh Shields appears to have gone up to 165 permanently. He's wrestled a tournament there. He wrestled in the dual meet for South Dakota State there, and he's listed there on their website. So I have to assume he's up. I think for a guy like that, I don't know how much he was pulling. Like, he's a big, strong kid, but he's a very high-paced, high-conditioned athlete. So I think, if he's a guy that's cutting a lot of weight or he's struggling, that probably doesn't benefit him much because of his pace. So maybe the pull was tough for him, but I think he's going to be effective at 165 or really whatever weight he goes. That kid's really good. And then Maruka, he's one that I certainly felt for last year with the whole Surtis situation. Came in, they battled for that spot. He lost it, and then Surtis ended up getting on the podium. So as wide open as 49 is, I think Maruka's got as good a shot of anyone to get to the semis or get to the finals. Back to the PA schools. Did you get a chance to watch any of your Lehigh guys or your Drexel guys from out east wrestle this weekend, Joe?
Watch, no. Follow some of the results, yes. Most notably, Jordan Wood with the big win, won the hammer up at Journeymen over the weekends. He's moved up to number 6 in the latest national rankings. I know we talked a little bit off the air about their 57-pounder, and you wanted to chew about him a little bit.
Yeah, Josh Humphrey, who hasn't been pulled out of the red shirt, but he went to the Binghamton Open. He breezed. He beat Deanna from Princeton handily. He pinned him in the finals. I think someone had told me that they think they're really high on this guy. He won his wrestle off, and I'd be interested to see if they pull him this weekend against Michigan, because that's a big duel, and he would get the chance to wrestle Pantaleo or Pantelio, however you pronounce it, from Michigan. So curious to see if he gets going. Still on Lehigh, it sounds like they have some injuries, though. Parker didn't compete. It sounds like Schramm might be done. Karam is possibly hurt. Skyler is possibly hurt. They at least didn't compete this weekend. Joe, have you heard anything on that, or can you kind of give us any updates?
I have not heard anything about any of those alleged injuries. But, you look at some of the results. We talked off the air over the week about Weiler in the first week. Had a little tough time in the opening weekend of the season. Some of the guys that he did, he took losses to. You look at Ethan Laird and Christian Brunner, two guys that he lost to that probably weren't guys he was expecting to lose to. Price already has a loss on his record for the year already. Again, tough loss to Nick Reenan, 4-1, who's no slouch. And but again, as far as injuries go, I haven't heard anything from the injury front. Probably should do better with putting my ear to the ground to see if I hear anything. Being that that's they're in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the lineup looks like versus Michigan this weekend. Cutler, of note, beat Mantelona from Oklahoma, Ben Harvey from Army, and Dylan Leidy from Purdue this weekend. So he had a pretty tough bracket, the Journeyman, and ended up competing pretty well. Jacobson, he ended up winning the B division, had a couple wins over an App State kid, the Wyoming kid, and then Noah Adams from West Virginia. But Weiler lost again. He lost to Kaywood from Army, and then Gentili he had lost to Adams, who Jacobson pinned. So my guess is he's definitely the odd man out, but it'll be interesting to see what they do with their lineup this weekend. Let's go through that dual meet real quick. I mean, you're looking at some matchups, I think, that jump out on paper right away, assuming guys are healthy. But 33, you possibly put Stevan Micic, again, if he's healthy, because he sat out the World Championships, versus Scotty Parker, who's yet to compete. Who do you like in that match, Joe?
Could upset some people if I say Micic over Scott Parker, but being that Scott's Parker's grew up in again my backyard, and but I don't know. A lot of, like you said, a lot of variables in that match. How healthy is Scott Parker? How healthy is Stefan Micic? I think in a match where they're both healthy, and a healthy match with both guys in good health, I'm going Micic in that match. I just think, I don't know, I've got a feeling Micic finished strong in the season last year. Yeah, wrestled more throughout the summer. he saw his name in a lot more things. I'm just saying he's poised to go. I don't think, again, not having wrestled a match yet in 2 weekends, yeah, I'm going Micic.
Hey, quick correction on my end. I had referred to Mike D'Angelo as Mike Deanna. Mike Deanna was the old Edinburgh coach, so I apologize to all the D'Angelos out there that think I might have slighted them. But back to Lehigh, another match that I look at for that dual meet and I circle is 174. You have Miles Amin, who competed in the All-Star Classic. He beat up Jacoby Smith pretty easily. If you recall, Amin was actually up on Valencia in the national tournament, got 1 or 2 of the first takedowns. He's really good. And then you got Cutler, who came off just a workman-like weekend where, he won a bunch of close matches but never really lost control. That's a big one, and especially with how tough that weight is, that could be a huge win for Cutler. Honestly, I would pick Amin in that match, but what are your thoughts? I mean, how much of a chance do you give Cutler?
I wouldn't say I like his chances to win, but I like his chances to be in it when you're heading that third period. For Cutler, it's one of those things where he's got to come out and relentlessly to get that first takedown and to take control of that match and put Amin on his heels and force him to come force the wrestler from behind. I don't know how well he'd adjust to that. Getting especially early in the season getting pushed like that, but I think Cutler's got to go out and dictate the pace of that match from the onset. He can't let Amin build any kind of lead or get ahead just because he's tough to score on in most cases, not including when he wrestles Valencia apparently. So. Also looking at that dual meet, and you go to not knowing who's going to wrestle, between at 141. There's a situation where at 141, 149, you had, what turned into a potential maybe not sort of slam dunk win for the Mountain Hawks, and now it becomes a toss-up match. If Karam and Skylar are both hurt, you're next. You have Jimmy Hoffman and David Pippa, 2 very capable state medalists, multi-state medalists from Pennsylvania. But are those guys equipped to step in that lineup and win a match in that big of a situation, Rob?
So they would end up facing off with the older Amin, who's smaller. Malik, I think his name is.
Did I say Miles? I meant, yeah, I'm sorry.
Maybe you did say Malik. I missed it, but I would be highly shocked if either of them beat him, to be honest. They're just very young. I haven't seen much of their results, but he's pretty tough. Like, he doesn't lose bad matches very often. He loses to national qualifier type guys. Another big one, who do you think they go with at 97? Because I'm looking at their results. I didn't realize Gentili beat Jacobson in the wrestle-off. So, I mean, they're just throw a name in the hat right now. I mean, who knows who they're going to wrestle?
It's a good problem to have and a bad problem to have. Because you got depth, but then no one's kind of really setting themselves apart as the man. It could be one of those weeks where it's like, hey, whoever has the best week at practice, and kind of almost platoon the weight until someone just goes out and starts producing. Weiler being the guy, and he's 4-3 at this point. Jacobs is 3-0, and Gentile's 2-1. But Gentile to win over Jacobson, but Jacobson having better results, and then Weiler being the starter and having so results. No one wants it, and so I think it's gonna. Who knows who they're gonna roll out there come this weekend.
Yeah, it should be interesting, and assuming that both teams are at full strength, it'll be a really good dual meet. I think there's a lot of interesting matchups. It could be a lot of fun. Switching gears, looking over the Pitt Panthers this weekend, they came out and just blitzed Cal Bakersfield. They only lost at 149. Russell Rolfing, who's probably Bakersfield's best wrestler, defeated the Pitt athlete. But from a notable matchup perspective, Philippi went out and beat Nickel, the kid that I had mentioned before, won a few matches at Nationals. So good for him to get his feet wet versus a kid like that. They compete versus UNI this weekend. I don't think Mickey's going to have a too notable of a matchup, but you look over that dual meet, and the ones I really circle are 165, You have Jake Wenzel, who's top 15, 20 ranked guy, versus Bryce Steinert. Bryce is obviously the guy who beat Marsteller at the scuffle last year. He was in red shirt, but he's a stud. So that's a good test for Wenzel. And then the really big one is 184, where you have Nino Bonacorsi competing versus prior All-American Drew Foster. That's a huge match right now for Bonacorsi to see where he's at and see how well he can compete with these guys that are, top 8 through top 12. And that dual meet, I mean, you look over Northern Iowa, they're a really good team. They probably have 4 or 5 guys in the top 10 or 12. So this is a really good test for Pitt to see where they're at. What are your thoughts on these matchups? Does anything jump off the table for you?
If we're being honest, I think it's a matter of Pitt kind of has to circle their wagons a little bit and really focus on not giving up bonus points, and they gotta steal probably 1, maybe 2 matches to keep themselves in it, and then obviously must win every match that they're supposed to. The ones you talked about with Foster and Bonacorsi, that's we talked measuring sticks. There it is, right out of the gate in the 3rd week of the season. That's one that I think Foster being like you said, returning All-American, but I feel just a winnable match for Bonacorsi. But it's in the same breath, this Panther team, the Panther train, man, they're cut from that Iowa mold, that Iowa Hawkeye mold. Doug Schwab and company have done a great job. It's just unfortunate they get just overshadowed what they do by the rest of the talent in their state. So Rob, you look at 174 pounds and you have Greg Harvey and Taylor Lewan, and Harvey, who's 1-0 in the season and looking to make leaps and bounds this year for the Panthers in that lineup, is definitely a situation where he's got to go out and do the best he can for this team. And it's just a lot of roadblocks everywhere you go. Talib Rahmani for Pitt, again, another guy that's gonna be in a situation where he has to go out and win. LJ Bentley and wrestling Josh Alber, and again another formidable opponent from the Panthers. So you look like there's not buzzsaws everywhere you look. Just Northern Iowa, like you said, just a solid team that's going to bring it. And it's be a good measuring stick for Pitt. And we had Keith Gavin on earlier in the year.
I think you look at this dual meet, 133. Philippi should be favored. Romani should be favored at 57. And then they'll be favored with Demetrius at heavyweight. But outside of that, they're going to need to steal some wins to win this dual meet. But, man, what a statement would it be if they could get, Nino could get a win and Bentley and they split and somehow pull out the dual meet win. That'd be huge. So I'm looking forward to that one for sure. You look at some of the other PA action this weekend coming up, or I guess from the past weekend. Lock Haven, the Journeymen Classic. Chance Marsteller won. He beat Answorth from Wyoming pretty handily in the finals. I think it was 7-3, 3 takedowns to none. He was really the guy that impressed me. Chance looked really poised out there. He wrestled really hard, and I was impressed with how he competed. I saw that interesting result. Warner from Lock Haven beat Fenstermacher. Were they high school teammates? Did Warner go to Liberty?
Yes, but Fenstermacher left Liberty. They were teammates for a portion of their career.
So I bet the Liberty faithful were probably pretty happy to see that result.
Looking forward to this weekend, Clarion's at Northern Illinois. And, we talked with Coach Keith Ferrero, another guy we had the privilege to sit down and, chat with about wrestling and his team and what they have going on. And, Northern Illinois, a solid team to MAC. It's gonna be a good measuring stick for them at this juncture of the season could springboard them to future success as well. What have you seen from? I know Clarion, not a huge sample size of work for their starters. For some, not others. What have you seen? What are your thoughts, Rob?
I watched them wrestle at their open a couple weeks ago. It was a mixed bag. I thought that Zackrell wrestled really well. I thought that Orts, he took a loss to Lock Haven's 41 in a match that was pretty close, but the kid was a 33-pounder last year. I thought Orts would get that win, so was a little bit surprised to see him lose that. Bolsack, he lost to Michael Beard from Malvern. So, I mean, Beard's a stud, right? But at the same time, Bolsack's a guy that probably wants to get on the podium this year. You got to win those matches. It was close, though. I guess he was losing big, but got a bunch of stall points late as Beard kind of clammed up on bottom. But White from Central Dolphin had a really good weekend. He was, I think, the PSAC co-athlete of the week 2 weeks ago. So I think we talked about him before. He has tremendous potential, and it's just he needs to put some things together, and hopefully he is. And looks like he has that spot locked up right now. So we'll see how he competes. From Clarion's sake, yeah, they wrestle Northern Illinois. They also wrestle Utah Valley State, who went out and kind of thumped Rutgers on Saturday. So that's a good dual meet. I think the ones to highlight there, you get Orts at 141, wrestling Finley, who knocked off Chad Red this weekend. And then 65, Romero from Utah Valley State's a tough athlete. He's top 20, top 25 kid. And he'll wrestle DeLong from Clarion, who's very tough. I know he's looking to get to the tournament. So that'll be a good test. That's a good dual meet for them. You know, if they can go out and beat Utah Valley State, who, you know, transitive property doesn't always work this way, but they beat Rutgers, that's a nice notch to have in your cap, because I think a lot of teams are looking at Rutgers as a top 10, top 15 team this year.
Let's not forget that Utah Valley went 19-15 in a loss to Nebraska as well over the weekend. Nebraska
had a few guys out, like they forfeited 25. I don't think they wrestled Isaiah White that dual meet. I watched Labriola wrestle this week. Holy smokes, is that kid a stud. He steamrolled a couple guys. He looks like a beast, but Nebraska as a team looked really flat. Red and White both got upset at least once. So
Moisey had a tough match with Menino from Drexel. I believe only won 8-7.
Yeah, it was a war. You know the one I want to talk about from that Drexel Nebraska dual meet though.
It's your boy. We talked about him off the air. Hey, I'll let you take over here. This is your guy that you've been high on since we talked about them in the summer.
Yeah, Ebed Gerald. I got an inside scoop from my guy Deshaunus, who wrestled at Drexel. He just speaks really highly of this guy. So he's a workhorse, and he's one of those guys that everyone around him is like, man, you're a lot better than you think you are. And he goes out and knocks off Isaiah White. And really, for me watching it, a lot of it was just effort and just heart. I mean, he outworked him. White almost scored a couple takedowns in the second that he stuffed, and that kind of took the gas out of the tank for White. And Gerald scored late and rode him tough to win the match. So I was really impressed. He's definitely a guy. If we were giving out awards for the week, he'd be at the top of my list, along with Bucknell's own Zach Hartman, who went out and beat Alex Smythe in a hotly contested match. Smythe is Buffalo's 157. He'll be actually wrestling in the World Championships U23s this week. So that's a huge, huge, huge win for Bucknell, a huge win for Hartman, and he's looking to keep that momentum going into the Navy Classic this week.
Let's talk about, you mentioned Navy Classic, so while we're at it, let's talk pretty good field for Navy Classic this year. Rob, Air Force, American, Brown, Bucknell, Campbell, Cleveland State, Edinburgh, George Mason, Indiana, Kent State, Michigan State, Navy, Ohio, Old Dominion, Oregon State, all teams that are going to be at Navy this week, and that's pretty cool. A lot of you see some definite PA guys there. Speaking of George Mason, picking up some more recruits recently. Out of the great state of Pennsylvania, they're doing
they're on a roll, man.
They are. What's their motto?
Be uncommon.
Be uncommon, and they're doing it, and it's pretty cool to see a school like that that is able to pull these recruits, and hopefully they're going to be more of a household name in a few years to come. I know it's not Pennsylvania related, but I saw it today, and if you guys fans out there have not seen the new wrestling room that Campbell just opened up this past week or for the beginning of the season, do yourself a favor, find them on Facebook. I'm sure they did a press release on Campbell's website or on Twitter or something. Rob, have you saw their new wrestling facility?
No, I haven't. I knew they were I knew they were building it a year ago. I follow Kerry Collette on Twitter, but is it pretty nice? I'll have to check it out here soon.
Yeah, do yourself a favor. It's nice to see, and again, I know we're getting away from Pennsylvania in a sense, but it's nice to see schools, and especially a school like Campbell, and what the support they've given Collette and his staff to go out and give them the best chance to compete. But this wrestling room, it's for a school the size of Campbell. It's nice. I was just down in Morgantown last weekend and popped into the wrestling pavilion there, and again, that's phenomenal. And it's not necessarily on pace with that as far as size goes. I think it's 3 full mats with a lot of extra space, weights, cardio equipment, stuff like that. But it's just top notch. It was so well done. So, please do yourself a favor and take a look at that. It was, kudos to Collette and all the work he's done there. It's no wonder, he's not leaving for any other jobs. He's got it pretty good at good old Campbell, fighting camels down there.
I look at Campbell and a guy like Collette. He grew up in a small town. He went to Penn State, the big school, and then he transferred to the small school, Lock Haven. I mean, that fits his person. I don't know the guy, right? But it fits like what he seems to be pretty well. Like, why can't they be the Edinburgh of the South or the Lock Haven of the South where, they're perennial top 15, top 20. You go around town, you're a big deal, right? Versus you take the Indiana job and you're still 9th in the Big Ten. There's not a huge culture. It's those big jobs sometimes, everyone thinks it's easy to turn around, but you're still competing with the other big schools that have traditionally been doing better than you. So sometimes staying small isn't a bad idea. On that note, I mean, now that you mentioned Campbell, I saw that Davidson, they raised $1 million in scholarships in the last year. I mean, Davidson has literally little to no tradition. I don't know if they've ever had any real success, but that's awesome to see. They're raising the bar, and hopefully they can turn that into something. So definitely cool stuff coming out of the South.
That's what you need. We just need to get some D1 programs and more programs down there in that part of the country. It'd be huge and be great for great for the sport. It actually, I have a feeling, it's growing a little bit. You see more teams or more schools adding teams than taking them away right now. And I know it's ebbs and flows. I know budget cuts can happen, at any time. But there's the fact that you see more about whether at all levels, Division I, Division II, Division III, our schools are looking to add the program, and it's nice to see it on the comeback.
You look at the schools that are adding. You have Little Rock, you have Presbyterian. It's not as easy to change stuff at the University of Georgia or South Carolina, but those small schools, I know Little Rock's looking at it like, hey, this is going to be our sport. Like, we don't have a great basketball tradition. We don't have a great football tradition, but we can put 9.9 towards wrestling, hire a good coach, get good recruits, and build this thing up. So, I mean, maybe that's the ticket is targeting these smaller schools that want to wrestle Division I as opposed to trying to change the University of Arkansas's mind or battle Title IX with them, because that just seems like it's an uphill battle. Outside of Fresno State, I mean, I don't know how many big programs have come back, right? It's usually the smaller ones. And not that Fresno's huge, but I think they're probably a bigger school than Little Rock or Presbyterian. And
Presbyterian has already gone out and hired their next coach. They got Mark Cody, and there's a guy who had great success at American, took the big job. There's possibly more proof to your argument, Rob, that took the big job at Oklahoma and it didn't work out for him.
One thing I want to talk about for this weekend is the Keystone Classic out in your neck of the woods. I think Philadelphia or Pennsylvania hosts it every year. Have you ever been to that thing, Joe? I've watched it a few times. Like I said, Alex DeShaughness, I'd watch him compete. I'll probably watch a little bit this weekend. But have you ever made it out that way?
No, I have not. And
you're too busy, man. You got like 6 jobs and 2 kids. That's enough.
Yeah, all my side hustles and kids are monopolizing my time. This year's field at the Keystone Classic, just running through it: Appy State, Drexel, Duke, Franklin and Marshall, Harvard, Penn State, Rider, Sacred Heart, Virginia Military. obviously Penn, everyone's wrestling for second place in that. And really with the lineup of teams, Rob, tell me right now, gut feeling, who's the second place team in this tournament?
I'll say Drexel.
It's a safe bet. Drexel, and you put Ryder in that conversation.
Ryder, maybe even Duke. You got the fine silver 4 storming through the brackets.
Exactly. You're going to see Penn State, their starters, their studs, are going to buzzsaw through. The real matches will be the ones you'll see for the guys that are fighting to get to that final match and wrestle and all for Vincenzo Joseph. That in itself is going to be a win for them. And then they use that match against a high level talent to see where they stand. I just think it's a great event. Philadelphia puts it on, and I talked about in the past when we talked about Penn, we talked about Drexel, about almost the change in wrestling inside the city, and it's going to draw a great crowd because Pennsylvania wrestling fans are rabid, and they're going to see a lot of kids there, young kids there, see Penn State wrestle, and fans that maybe can't make it out to State College get a chance to get eyes on them in person, and Beat the Streets in Philadelphia is doing a good job, and the numbers are strong there. There's just a lot to be optimistic about, and they're going to be treated to some pretty good wrestling at that. You have a team that's full hammers like Penn State, and you have a lot of quality teams around them. You think about the wrestlers that we previewed from. We previewed Drexel as a team. We talked about Franklin and Marshall. We talked about Penn. There's 3 other squads that we talked about, and their best guys from there will have a good chance to get some good competition right in their for 2 of them right in their home city. So
looking at the teams and the competitors, the big weight class that jumps off the page for me is 149. That's the one I think is by far the most wide open. You'll have fine silver from Duke. You'll have hopefully the 2 Pennsylvania or PSU guys, Brady Burgee and Jared Verclaren, who hit a sick throw in the Kent State duel. And then you'll have Antelona from Penn, kid we talked about from Florida, to where on paper, fine silver is probably the favorite there. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. What are your thoughts on that Pennsylvania or that Penn State situation? Do you think Burgee makes that weight? Do you think he holds it? Do you think it's Verclaren's to lose? Or how do you see that shaking out this weekend?
From what I've heard, Burge is making the weights becoming or not becoming is tough for him. I know that some of the publications still have him ranked because it's only been one match and Verclaren wrestled well this weekend. I really hope that he's able to make the weight, not because for any other reason. I just want to see them settle on the mat. But looking at what you said, fine silver, yeah, definitely is the favorite, and Antelona from Penn. Looking forward to seeing what he has, what he's going to bring to the table.
Yeah, Antelona won the Michigan State Open. I don't want to say in dominant fashion, but he won. I don't think he was pushed that hard, so I definitely think he's ready to go. And he's a guy. I think I said I thought he'd be a national qualifier this year. He's 3 or 4 matches in, so I'm not busting out the champagne just yet, but he looks good. I think Penn's going to need him to kind of carry the water a little bit this year. Some other notable results. I know we had talked about this off air. What a weekend Trent Hidlay had, huh? Those kids are just studs. They keep getting better and better. For anyone that missed it, he went out this weekend to the Binghamton Open. He knocked off Mason Manville, who, if you recall, had a pretty good rivalry with his older brother Hayden. So that had to feel good for their family, for him to get that win. He followed that up by beating All-American Brandon Womack, who I believe is the first All-American ever from the state of Alabama, wrestles for Cornell right now. And then he beat Vincent Dupre, who's at Binghamton. His younger brother, Louis Dupre, is obviously the stud redshirt freshman. But what a weekend for that kid. And I think, fast forwarding to next year, you got one of those Bullard brothers he's going to have to wrestle off unless Renan bumps up. Do you think there's any issues with him getting in the lineup, or do you think he's too good? He'll find his way in no matter what?
He'll find his way in no matter what. That team will be too talented, or I should say he'll be too talented that you can't keep him out. They're going to find a way to make it work. There's no way I don't see it happening, especially weekend is any indication of how his career is going to project, and how he's going to do this redshirt season. He'll be in the lineup. And on a side note, before you go, Rob, I really do appreciate you saying his last name correctly. I know the people up there in Mifflin County do get are very quick to correct you. For those that say Hidlay, for those out there listening, it is Hidlay. At least so I've been told several times by one of my coworkers that's from up that way.
If he keeps wrestling like that, I'll pronounce it any way he wants, because he's a beast. I like watching those brothers wrestle a lot. What I like about them is they weren't super highly touted as freshmen or sophomore. I guess Trent made the state semi or finals as a sophomore, but like coming into high school, he wasn't some blue chip can't miss, right? Like those kids, they just seem to have a great work ethic, and they keep getting better, and they have a lot of passion for the sport. Hayden obviously will be competing overseas this weekend at the U23 World Championship. So, best of luck to him. Hopefully he can bring back a gold medal to Mifflin County and make his people proud. So some other interesting non-Pennsylvania school results. Ohio State, they wrestled at the, I think it was the Ohio Intercollegiate Open, I believe it was called. And Sammy Sasso took on Micah Jordan. He lost, I believe, 9-7. So he was obviously able to put some points up. I'd like to see that match. Track, they just charge so much for those tournaments. Unless I really have a reason to watch, I typically don't buy it. And then Ethan Smith knocked off Tashawn Campbell. Smith, of course, was from Greater Latrobe. I think he moved to Virginia. And then Campbell wrestled at Pitt. He's from Penn Hills, then went out to Ohio State. So they seem to have a little bit of a roster battle going on there at 74. Campbell's a guy that, last year he went out and beat the crap out of Anthony Valencia, and everyone was like, whoa, like this guy is going to be the man here at Ohio State, but showed some weaknesses, scoring takedowns versus top guys, and really his conditioning. So I'm curious to see if Smith can break in and steal that spot. He looks revved up, ready to go, and that should be an interesting one. And then obviously Sasso, I think he'll be the heir apparent at 149. I've said for years, I think that's a guy that could win a national title. He's that good. He's that talented. What are your thoughts on how Sammy's wrestled so far this year? He won the Michigan State freshman sophomore division with ease, but was able to push Micah Jordan. Does that surprise you at all, Joe?
No, it doesn't. In all honesty, it doesn't surprise me. Watching him wrestle from for the last 3 to 4 years, he's been nothing short of amazing, and he just gets better, and he rises to the competition. Not shocked at all that he pushed Micah Jordan. It's one of those things like, I think use the snake-bitten term national champ in describing him. I hate to bestow that type of pressure on him, but the potential's there. I mean, All-Americans, definitely an All-American, multi-time All-Americans in his future. I don't want to go ahead and say anything more than that, but I'm definitely thinking along the same lines as you when in regards to that. And he's just fun to watch. Like he just wrestles like a wide open style and just keeps coming and just always looking to score points. I wish he would have stayed in state, went somewhere, and it's unfortunate that he did get away. And but Ohio State, they do have a good room, and they're a pretty good team.
He's definitely, I don't want to jinx the kid and put the pressure on him. Not that he gives a crap what I think, but you watch a guy, and I'm not saying he's going to win a national title, but he has the potential to, and you can't say that about everyone, right? There's very few and far between, I think, that you watch and you think, okay, that kid could get to the top of the mountain one day. He's one of them. There's a lot of PA guys that come out. I said that about Mikey Labriola when he came out. I was really impressed with him in high school, and I was really impressed with him last year. But you just never know. I mean, you might run into the next Cale Sanderson that keeps you from doing that. But I think both those guys certainly could have the potential to do it.
So looking at this weekend, the much-anticipated debut of Dayton Fix. And he's going to debut it for the Cowboys against returning national champ from South Dakota State, Seth Gross. The Pennsylvania twist is the next day. His second match will be against Pennsylvania, former NCAA finalist, multi-time All-American for the University of Minnesota, Ethan Lysak. I'm looking forward to seeing, obviously a lot of hype around Fix, but I want to see him. I want to see how he does. He's going to wrestle two guys back-to-back days, high level, hammers on top, and it'll be interesting to see how he is able to adapt, given that he hasn't wrestled a whole lot of folk style lately.
Yeah, that's definitely the match to watch this weekend, or the matches to watch. I'll be honest, I would be surprised if he beats Seth Gross. I shouldn't say I'd be surprised. I think Dayton Fix could beat anyone on the planet, and it wouldn't shock me. But I certainly favor Gross. I think Gross is bigger. He's certainly very tough on top. He's very savvy. But I don't think Fix is necessarily big for the weight at 133. He made 125 this summer, I think 3 or 4 times in a matter of 5 or 6 weeks. So he can't be that big. And Fix or Gross is enormous. I think that could possibly play into the equation. Lezak, that's an interesting one too. I mean, Lezak kind of has that DeSanto mentality, but on top, where it's like once he gets rolling, he just makes it look easy. But if he doesn't get rolling, like he looks limited, if that makes sense. Like in matches he loses, he doesn't typically look very good, but then he'll take the same guy in a week. But in terms of that match, I'd probably favor Fix, even though Lezak's the PA guy. I think he's too savvy on his feet. He'll get a couple takedowns. He'll force Lezak to choose top and kind of work from there. On the Oklahoma State note, it'll be interesting to see if Dakota Greer is in the lineup for them at 184 or 197. Because I know we talked about that off air. I mean, they're loaded with All-Americans, and there's not a spot in the lineup for every one of them. So it'll be interesting to see if they split matches, if he gets to wrestle the full boat, or what they do there.
I'm going to disagree with you. I'll agree with you that I don't think he beats Gross. Wouldn't be surprised if it happens, but he would have to be able to get out from bottom. I don't see it happening. Lezak, I think Lezak beats him as well because I think he'll get to his top game, and he's going to get a chance to go on top unless Fix can pin him before that opportunity happens. We all know you get a guy on top, and he gets. And again, in the sense of playing devil's advocate, because you alluded to the fact there's when Lezak's not on, it doesn't look pretty at all. But I think it's going to be a match that Lezak will be up for. He's done some talking trash on Twitter in recent weeks and months with some, I believe with DeSanto about wrestling him, right? If correct me if I'm wrong, Rob. Do you see that?
Yeah, he I think dared DeSanto to choose bottom versus him, and then the Iowa fans just showed the clip of Gilman pinning him. So
yeah, again, so he's brimming with confidence in his top game, and rightfully so. It's his maybe his strongest position. I think if he gets Fix, if he gets on top of Fix, he's not gonna have his way with him, but he's gonna be able to control him. It's just that is Lezak able to limit what Fix does in every other facet of the match. I think Lezak. I think you see +2 just Fix having just trouble just adapting to the college game. And I just think that's what it's going to come down to. Now, would that be the same results come March? Maybe, maybe not. But I definitely think early on the advantage goes to the 2 upperclassmen. But like you said, Fix, at this point, kind of nothing he does surprises me because of his insane abilities.
Yeah, and he's just success in freestyle. I mean, this guy has literally beaten at least one world medalist in the past. So he's up there. He can compete with just about anyone. He's a beast. I'll be excited to watch him wrestle. Any last thoughts, Joe? Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
No, Rob, I'm good. So fans, maybe an apologies in order. We did jump around, but we kind of talked about just randomly just hitting matches and results and things that were just jumped off the screen as we watched or read about, just looked at things. So, if we kind of went all over the place, that's kind of how we planned on coming into this. I'm looking forward to another great weekend of wrestling, how a lot of our PA guys do or don't do for that matter. And, definitely looking forward to what happens in Philadelphia this weekend.
One last big nugget. I had this in my notes. I don't know how I missed it. How about Starocci committing to Penn State? What a big move for him. I think that he fits into that lineup pretty nice. You have Brooks at either 74 or 84, and then Starocci fills out the other one. What are your thoughts on his prospects moving forward? Is he a guy you think could be that next Penn State superstar or what?
Definitely. And that's not just my PA pride coming through on that one. I just think the kid's destined for greatness. You talk about people who just continually get better and have high ceilings, and he comes into conversation. He's achieved at some of the highest levels already, and he just continues to impress. So I really think, and for all intents and purposes, I don't know him, but he seems like a kid who definitely has his head on his shoulders and facing the right direction. I don't think of a better place he could go because of the examples that have already been set in that wrestling room and the leadership in there. If you're guys that do it by the book, that's where you want to. That's where you want to go if you have an opportunity. And I think it's a tremendous choice. I'm glad they were able to keep him in state, and looking forward to seeing him in the blue and white.
I was happy for him to see that. I know that pretty much every school in the country that needed a 74 or an 84 was just all over him trying to get him. So there's a lot of disappointed coaches out there, but it's always good to see the top talent stay in state, whether it's Penn State, Clarion, Pitt, Bucknell, you name it. Looking forward to seeing his senior year if anyone competes with him, if Nyhouse is up at that weight or anyone else. But should be a good senior year for him, and looking forward to see him get in that Penn State room.
Agreed. So, folks, we're going to wrap it up here. We want to thank you for tuning into the Open Room with Joe Youngblood and Rob Walko. Look forward to, as Rob said earlier in the broadcast, for the 2019 Surge. Jeff, I'm sure, will be out early and often with the publicity and press for that. But for those that did not make it to the Surge this past year, in all seriousness, we'd like to give Jeff a hard time. It was a huge success, a lot of talent there, and it's an event that's only going to grow. So definitely, those high school wrestlers out there listening, or parents of high school wrestlers, if you want a chance, come out to the Surge, and as Jeff loves to say, prove it. Yeah,
if you're a high school freshman or sophomore especially, and you want to get your name out there, like you saw Jared Kessler won and Eric Gibson, I mean, what better way than to go to that tournament? Because Super 32, unless you're just an absolute phenom like a Crookham, you might get lost in translation. You might go 3, 4, and 2. No one really notices. But the Surge, you're going to face state medalists, really good guys, and get a chance to kind of get your name out there.
Another podcast down, and we're going to be back in a week or a little bit longer with another one, giving you some updates on what has transpired. And we're going to be more regular come the season, getting some guests on and doing our thing and keeping you guys informed with some semi-educated opinions and some facts mixed in as well. That will wrap it up for another week here in the Open Room with Rob and Joe. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, visit PAPowerWrestling.com for all your wrestling needs. Follow us on Twitter at PAPowerWrestle. Give us a thumbs up on Facebook, and check us out on Instagram. Don't forget, fans, you can subscribe to PA Power Podcast on iTunes and listen to all 3 shows on Spotify. If you want to send any questions or suggestions for the show, email us at collegetalk@PAPowerWrestling.com.